Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ukraine. It's now been over 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. Congress has provided $114 billion in supplemental appropriations, not including potentially billions in additional repurposed, transferred, and reprogrammed funds. And yet we are no closer to getting a clear picture of the Biden administration's strategy for providing continuing U.S. assistance in Ukraine. This war is not going away anytime soon. Why are we funding long-term conflicts with emergency spending? Why are we proposing to have an emergency supplemental Ukraine spending in a 10-year budget resolution? This is not an honest, accountable, or transparent way to fund Ukraine. It's critical that Democrats and the Biden administration provide a real long-term plan with a real long-term budget proposal to fund this conflict. In fact, there have been more than one request of the administration, namely Representative Garcia and a few of us who asked the administration the same thing a few months ago. And I'd like to submit for the record a letter from the Budget Oversight Task Force to OMB requesting a full accounting on Ukraine funding. This letter was sent last October, and OMB has still not responded to the request. This lack of transparency and inefficient responses by the Biden administration and Office of Management and Budget on Ukraine funding is unacceptable. Unfortunately, this is not the first time the administration and OMB have received congressional correspondence requesting more details and information on Ukraine-related expenditures. For over a year, senators and members of Congress have sought greater transparency from the Biden administration regarding the total budgetary resources across all government departments and programs provided to respond to Russia's war in Ukraine. We got a lot of priorities. How about the border? Before we even discuss helping Ukraine getting their house in order, we must first get our own house in order. The crisis at the southern border is unequivocally one of the greatest threats facing our nation today. Since President Biden took office, there have been roughly 8.7 million encounters nationwide and over 7.2 million encounters at the southwestern border alone. The figures for known gotaways is over 1.7 million migrants and growing. CBP is overwhelmed on a daily basis and have zero support from the Biden administration and zero support from their own boss, Secretary Mayorkas. The American taxpayer is overwhelmed as well. According to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, the per annum cost of illegal immigrants on the taxpayer is $150.7 billion. Secretary Mayorkas confirmed that he is releasing in the U.S. 85% of migrants encountered at the southwest border. 85% of 7.2 million is 6.1 million, meaning 6.1 million illegal migrants entered at the southwest border and end up in the United States. Biden refuses to declare a state emergency, refuses to restart construction on the border wall and other much-needed physical barriers, refuses to reinstate Title 42 authorities, refuses to end catch and release, refuses to restart the Remain in Mexico policy, refuses to use any legal executive authorities to galvanize the CBP and bring some semblance to order. President Biden could stop the border crisis with a snap of his fingers, but he chooses to let this crisis continue. This lack of operational control is fundamental dereliction of duty perpetrated by the Biden administration. This is out of control. The governor of Texas has declared an invasion and appropriated over $13 billion in state funds alone to address the crisis of the border. Where's the federal government? Are we aware of our constitutional duty to provide for the common defense, protect the states of this union against invasion? We have 18,755 Chinese nationals cross the border so far this year. Our greatest adversary is actively using TikTok to show their citizens how to get into the United States through the southwest border. The numbers are staggering. And unfortunately, the administration's response is just less than positive, if non-existent. Once President Biden fixes our national security and humanitarian catastrophe at our border, then we can talk Ukraine. I urge a no vote on this amendment, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Michigan and yield the remaining 1 minute to my ranking member.